Hello, everybody. How are you? I've got a piece of hair sticking up there. What's going on with my hair? How are you, everybody? I'm live, and today I've got to get rid of that piece of hair there. Honestly, it's going to do it, isn't it? Today we're going to be talking about how to slow things down for adopted children, how to allow them to integrate into your family life. So if you are here, feel free to chat. I'm open to questions today, so I try to slow things down as well myself when I'm talking, because when I look back at my lives, I'm fully into my subject, but I don't necessarily give anybody a chance to ask anything. All right, so the question that I was asked was, if it's a 7-year-old, somebody a little bit older, then how are you going to slow things down for a 7-year-old? Okay, so I've come on a little bit early, so hopefully more people will come in ready for 2:30. I'm a little bit early, but if you are here, just let me know that you're here. Give me your name if you want to. If you've got children adopted, let me know. Just let me know in the chat. All right. So it's how we're going to integrate children slowly into our family life. And what do I mean by that? Especially when you're talking about a child that's slightly older as well. And so what we're going to look at is the ways in which you can do that. Now, when it comes to a 7-year-old, it's going to be pretty different for a 7-year-old than what it would be for a 3 to 4-year-old, obviously. 3 to 4-year-olds are a bit more hectic, and 2-year-olds are even more hectic than that. So for a 7-year-old or around about that age, it's going to be different. But I think a lot of what I'm going to say to you would be the same if you had a 7-year-old or you had younger children. It's going to be the same. So the first thing I would say is, there's always a danger, I think, with adoptive parents of when they bring children into the family, that everybody gets really excited and they want to provide as much as they possibly can for that child. They want to make them feel welcome and at home. And so what they do is they get loads of resources and toys, and they make the bedroom really lovely. And they want to do all these things for the adopted child without thinking about the impact that that might have on that child. So if we're going to slow it down, then you don't want to have too many choices for the child when they first come in, or indeed, to be honest, for the next subsequent weeks and months. Those weeks and months we normally call the honeymoon period, but in my experience, adopted children take a lot longer than even 6 months to settle in. So in those early days, you're not looking to bombard them with too many things, even though it's tempting to do so. So the types of things that I'm talking about is, if you were to overload them with too many toys, that could be overwhelming. Just resources, even clothes. Children need to be able to feel in control. And if you overload them with too many things, then it's going to be very difficult for them to feel in control. And it may seem like, perhaps if they've not had very much and you want to compensate for that, that it's great to get them all these things. But at the very beginning, they're just trying to get to know you. And that is the most important thing for them, not to have the best bedroom there ever was, the most toys there ever was, the latest technology, to actually think about what that child's feeling like coming into your home. And your home is going to be brand new, or if it's not brand new, they're going to take a while to navigate your rules and your routines, if you see what I mean. So it's a case of, really, first point, limit the choices for the child. Even though that seems like you might not be giving them what they want, just limit the choices, slow it down. If you've got a 7-year-old, then they're going to be at the stage where they're impacted by their peers at school, or if you're home educating, they still will be impacted by what they see other people having around them. And sometimes when you give a child too many things, it just causes chaos in their mind. And when you're looking at childhood trauma, that can happen much more easily for the children that we're dealing with, that sense of chaos coming into their minds. So yeah, keep it simple. As well as the resources on the toys, think about the stimulation that you're giving them. You may have heard or may not have heard that it's not always great to do rough and tumble with some children. And we found with our boys very much so that if you started a rough and tumble game with them, then they couldn't necessarily control the excitement that they would have from rough and tumble. So again, it may feel like exciting to get, right in there and involved with your adopted child and have lots of fun and exciting rough and tumble games, but they may find that really hard as someone who's experienced childhood trauma. They might find that really difficult to cope with. When my adult children used to come around when our boys were younger, I mean, they still come around now, but when they were playing rough and tumble games, and honestly, this still happens now, okay? Rough and tumble games, exciting games, hide and seek, chase, whatever. The boys love it even now. And I often say to my adult children that I've got them all hyped up, you can now bring them back down for me, please, because they're up here somewhere and they can't cope with the excitement. So again, another way of slowing it down is to bear in mind that exciting gameplay and exciting parties and lots of noise and stimulation and fun is okay, but you run the risk of them not being able to regulate how they feel and not being able to cope with that excitement and not knowing where to put that excitement. And then you might get behavior issues as a result of that. Okay, so that's another thing. What else have we got written down here? So that's kind of thing. So that's things, okay, and activities. And that's one side of it. But the biggest, not problem, but the biggest thing you may find is the excitement around meeting your adopted child is palpable, get the word right, palpable with your friends and family. Now, if you were adopting an older child at say 7, it's going to be very obvious that they're adopted. They're not just going to have sprung out of nowhere. And so they're going to want to meet them. And this used to happen as well when we were fostering as soon as we had children. I mean, we were excited and we couldn't wait for our family and friends to meet them. Often case there was a bit of a caveat that we would have to say to our family, please don't say this to them, or please don't do this because this is what will happen. And looking back as well, I think we did come in quite quickly with our adult children and do lots of activities with the boys, and try to do lots of lovely things with them. But when I look back at some of the pictures, you can see that they are sometimes like rabbits caught in headlights because they were only little. But all of a sudden, all these people, because we've got a big family, so I've got 5 adult children, were there. They would have been teenagers then, trying to do lovely things with them. And it was a lot. And when I look back, we should have slowed it down a bit. We should have let them get to know individual people slower and allow them to feel in control of the situation, rather than as adults, we're controlling everything and it's just happening to them. It's just happening to them and they don't know what's going on. So slow it down in the sense of think about who they have to meet, who you want them to meet, who you want them to build a relationship up with, and sort of stick to that plan and just integrate things slowly as far as family, friends, and even their friendships are concerned. Go slow. Children can be very cruel and children can be very selfish, and you may think it's great if your adopted child all of a sudden has a large group of friends. You might think, well, that's wonderful, they're settling. But again, in my experience, there's always problems in friendship groups, and it's much easier to cope with it if you know that those 1 or 2 friends really well, and and you can trust the other parents or carers that are alongside those friendship groups, that you could speak to that parent or carer and say, I think something's happened between our children, can we sort it out? So again, introduce friendship slowly. And I would say for any age adopted child, that would be true. Introduce friendship slowly, test them out, try some things out, and don't go too fast with that. So that's things, that's people. And then you're going to think about the environments that you're in and where you live and what's around you. Okay, so eventually you're going to want these children, particularly if they're a bit older, to mix in the community and do some things that make them feel good. And our experience with our boys is this has been really difficult because they've not wanted to necessarily mix out in the community, and they've not necessarily wanted to do activities we've wanted them to, but they haven't wanted to. So I suppose in this case, we've wanted to speed it up. The jury's still out as to whether we should or shouldn't have done that. We got them swimming quite quickly because we were really concerned that they could swim. And we got them doing a few things around school activities. But we soon quickly found them getting very tired, very stressed quite quickly, and pared it back. So we tried a few additional things on top of the swimming, and we just found that they weren't able to cope very well with that. Now, it may be different for the child that you have. They may be a lot more resilient. They may be a lot more ambitious. They may be a lot more dynamic and out there with the personality. But again, I would say slow things down for them if you can, because does it matter if they go to one club? Does it matter if they, don't necessarily go to groups in the beginning? If you've perhaps got one thing that they like and you stick to that one thing, they know the children there, they know what's going to happen to them, they feel in control. Maybe that's enough, even at the age of 7. I think as parents, we worry about introducing our children to so many things because we want them to get good at this and good at that. And then when they're older, we want them to have all these skills. But for many of our children, they are surviving day to day. They are anxious, they are fearful, and they're surviving, and they want to feel in control. So they don't want to do a nursery day or a school day, and then 3 out of 7 days they've got something else that they've got to cope with. In my opinion, that's a lot for them. So again, slow it down. You might find that after you've been adopting for, say, 3 months, that actually things do look a lot more sort of controlled, and you can start to introduce more activities and more things going outside out of the home. But in the early days, for that child, that home is their safe space. That home is their little castle. So just go slowly and wisely about what you introduce outside of the home and who you introduce inside of the home so that they can keep feeling safe in that home. So I'll talk a bit more about community and activities and how that looks in general in a minute. It's got a little diagram that I've drawn for myself. It's a ridiculous diagram that I definitely won't share with you, but it helps me. Talking about the home for a minute, there's a couple of videos on my channel about safe spaces and calm spaces and that type of thing. One strategy you can use, and obviously I don't know what your space would be like in your home, so it's not going to be possible for everyone, I realise. And this is just our experience, is that we found that if the boys have somewhere quiet and nice to go, then that really helps them. Now, they are older and they have both got their own room because they would probably, yeah, it wouldn't go well. And we've got the space to do that, so we're really lucky. But one thing that we've always done with them is make sure that at least to some extent they know where everything is in their room. Now, that's really difficult with one of them because it's difficult, but we try our best to help them to create kind of zones in their bedroom. And you could try to create sort of spaces within the home that you think look like calm areas. Okay. So if your child is a little bit younger or whatever, you could have a space where there's not a lot going on, but there might be a few books, there might be a blanket, there might be a couple of cushions, and you just call it the chill area. And the child gets used to going to that area when they want to have a little rest, when they want to have it quiet, because again, we assume that children want a hive of activity, but sometimes with our children, they've got so much going on up here and they're sort of firefighting all day long to keep things, emotions, bottled up, that they need somewhere to go. Now, with our boys now being older, unfortunately, that's gaming, but it does work for them. But with a child that's not at that level, we've got teens, you might want to create a nice little cozy environment for them. This is kind of called containment sometimes. So you might notice that your child might like to feel sort of contained in some way. And you can use pop-up tents for this. You can use wigwams, or you can just have it in a corner and you sort of say to them, look, that's your nice little space to go when you feel like you want to calm down. There's your favorite books. There's your favorite toys. That's just for you. And it may be that if they're feeling quite insecure around their attachment with you, that they will want to have that near you, which is why I'm saying you may not have that in the bedroom. You might have to have that downstairs. So that's another way of sort of slowing things down and calming things down. That's like another strategy. So I can see a few of you are here. So if you're not too shy, pop a message in the chat. This session today is all about integrating adopted children into family life, but slowing it down for them and giving you and them some strategies of being able to feel like they're in control and you're in control. However, it's also a Q&A session. So if you have any questions for me, even not related to this or related to this or related to what, my family, please pop it in the chat and I'll have a little check of it and we'll stop what we're talking about and we'll look at those questions and we'll answer those questions. Okay. If not, just carry on with what I'm talking about. So you may have seen a diagram where it's kind of like an ecosystem, and you might have had to do this for your assessment, or you might have seen something like it anyway, where you've got your nuclear family in the middle, and then you've got like your extended family, and then you've got support network people here, and then you've got your community, where they're going out to clubs and stuff like that. Then you've got your region, then you've got your country, and so it goes on. Yeah, I'm sure you know what I mean. So when you are trying to settle adopted children or foster children, you want them to get used to that inner circle as much as you possibly can first. So this is where it gets, I think, really hard. I find this really hard, and I've had this conversation with my husband. We're home educating now, our oldest son. The biggest problem I'm having is he doesn't want to come out of this house, but he's 15. Okay. So this is where you've got to be balanced about it and you've got to be sensible about it. I'm not saying just, cocoon the child in the home and never let them out of your sight. And I'm not suggesting home educating is right. I'm just saying that to slow it down for the child and help them to feel that they can survive and they're in control, they've got to get to grips with your home and your routine before they can really cope with much else. So particularly in the early days, this is what I find quite funny about adults. Let me just have a little swig of water. If you ever had a conversation with someone about how you do Christmas and they look at you and go, wow, we don't do that. We put the tree up then and then we have this and that. And sometimes as adults, we assume that people understand what our routine is and why we do it. And we also sometimes make assumptions that other people agree with it and that that's how they do it. All right. And the problem with that is, of course, is our adopted children have no clue what our routine is and why we do it. And they might look as like they're coping, and they might look like they're following on and following through, but they may have no clue why you're doing certain things. So we always sit down at the table and eat. And we always have done because we've had a large family. So to try and dish up several dishes of, and try and have it all on your laps was never going to work, right? So we've always done that. But when we've had foster children in, or when we've had, new placements and stuff, they don't know what we're doing. And interestingly, when we got to know a Syrian family locally, they don't know what we're doing either. They just sit on the floor and have theirs. And it's trying to get your mindset as an adult into the mindset of the child that you have no clue what's gone before. Now, you'd like to think, wouldn't you, that foster parents will have put certain things in place and you'll have some idea. But even then, every house is so different. The smells are different. There might be pets, there might not be pets. The kitchen might be massive, it might be tiny. The food might be accessible or it might not be. The bedroom might be huge or it might be small. I can see we've got someone here. Hello, Joanna. Okay, what we got here? Hi there. I hope you're happy with me reading this out, Joanna. I'm currently volunteering as a mentor for a 10-year-old from a household identified for needing extra support. Definitely different from adoptive situation, but essentially looking. Okay, yeah. Looking to help her build confidence and social skills. Do you have any advice in terms of encouraging communication, especially about things they might not want to talk about? Example, school and friendship groups. Okay, so you're volunteering. So perhaps pop in the chat how long you've been volunteering for, Joanna. And I think it's Joanna, isn't it? And then I'll come up with some ideas for you. So let me know how long you've been. I'm sorry about my hair, everybody. I think the rain has hit it today. Oh, let me see. Oh, 6 months. Okay. And she's struggling to sort of, she's struggling to talk to you, I guess. Okay. So there's a couple of things that spring to mind, and that is she used to talking to anyone about how she feels about things? And does her family allow that to happen? You don't have to put this in the chat, by the way. It's just a few thoughts. Sort of what barriers are there to her wanting to talk to you? So 6 months is quite a long time, but in the scale of things within a family life, it's not a very long time. And this is the same for adopted children, to be honest with you. I would say there's a parallel here because she's 10 years old. She's been in that family all that time and they've got their way of doing things. Quite clearly, it was also they need extra support. So I would imagine that there are a few problems there as well. So is she what she could be worried that if she talks to you about things, then it will get back to her family? Or if she talks about school, then what I find with our boys is once they articulate there's a problem, it's sort of out there and it makes it more real. So her anxiety might be around that once she starts talking about things, actually the reality of her not coping and not doing too well is out on the table, isn't it? And she may be used to just coping within that family environment and not sharing and not really talking about anything. So let me just see what you've put in the chat here. It's often closed answers, and I've noticed you changed the subject very quickly. Wow. Yeah, so she clearly has got issues, hasn't she? And she clearly doesn't want to share them. So sometimes what I do is I will almost do a storyline. I mean, I don't know what her level of, intellect, cognitive ability is then. My boys struggle cognitively, so sometimes I'll do a storyline around things that might have happened to me when I was younger, because I've got plenty of stories around that, or things that I've seen that have happened to other people. I might sort of say it from a third party kind of thing, talk about issues that I've seen other people have to deal with at school, or how I felt about something in the past. And really what I'm doing is tapping into maybe what they may be feeling. I might do almost like a story. I know she's 10, but you could look at some stories that are around about her age that talk about those type of issues. There are some out there. I know she's not a looked after child, but sort of Jacqueline Wilson, that type of thing comes to mind, where children start to experience issues and problems. The other thing as well, around 10, as we know, puberty might be hitting, or she might be getting close to that. There might be a lot of problems and embarrassment around that. I do think in time she will start to trust you, but I don't know how often you see her. Sometimes little gifts, if you're allowed to, will help. And that doesn't have to be anything too costly, but perhaps if you know she's into a certain thing and you think the family are happy, and your organisation is happy, a tiny little gift, which just seems like nothing to you, with no strings attached, just say, "Oh, I saw this today and I thought of you. I thought you'd like to have it." End of. No questions asked, just, just have it. It's just trying to find those ways in, but it sounds to me like it's just going to take more time and you just experimenting with different approaches. There are cards. I don't know again whether you would be allowed to use them. The treasure deck cards by Karen, I think it's Kleisling or something like that. There's different sets of treasure deck cards, and they are amazing because you just use pictures and you just talk about the pictures. And again, it's like coming out of it a little bit, like a third party approach. So that's another way you could try as well. So I hope that helps you. Let me just see. Yes, I think we've covered that. So again, anybody else in the chat want to ask any questions? Don't be put off by the fact that I just waffle on, guys, because people will watch about the video and they'll want to get information from it. So I'll just talk when there's no questions there. But obviously, if there is questions, I will answer them. Oh, good. That's great, Joanna. Brilliant. So where were we? Nuclear family, and then so on and so on, all these rings going out. So I was saying that they need to feel safe in the home. All right. Now, this can take years. If depending on what they've been through, it can take years. So building up sort of spaces that you think work around calmness is great. That might be a little bit easier for a younger child because a younger child is used to playing in tents and, they make dens and stuff like that, don't they? And it might seem a little bit more odd to an older child, but my experience is that older children, beyond 7 will be happy to make themselves little cozy dens, places to hide and things like that. So you can still do it at that age. Then, of course, you're looking for them to be happy to go into other people's houses. And what we did was introduce our nearest and trusted relatives with that. We didn't do any staying really at other children's houses, but there were lots of reasons behind that. And that doesn't mean to say that you couldn't do the same. That you would need to do the same. You may trust a friend with a child, but I would go slow because we've found again that when they stay away from home, there's huge anxiety there. So this is what we're talking about, is slowing down the expectations for children that have suffered childhood trauma. Whereas other children might be able to do sleepovers, they might be able to stay for tea at other people's houses. You may find that for your child that isn't going to work very well. And it's a case of watching those levels of anxiety so that you don't put on them before they're ready, really. Then you've got your community, and then you've got your region. So you're talking about when they go off to clubs, when they go and stay away at camps, when you go away on holiday, all of those things. In my experience, adopters want to introduce a lot of things quite quickly. They want to get them away on a holiday because that's what they normally do. So they want to race off and have a holiday. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it right away. I know a social worker would not advise it right away, but I would say, personally, I'd wait a good 9 months, maybe a year before you think about what I call a proper holiday, because it's just too much too quickly. That's just my opinion. I mean, it is just my opinion. So that's that. So let's see. So has anybody got any questions for me while I'm just looking at my notes? I'm sure you probably have, but anyway, we'll keep going, shall we? So when children transition from foster care into adoption, they normally do have some of their own stuff. And the foster carer is allocated a certain amount of money, and there's an expectation that every year they'll be getting a birthday present and they'll be getting stuff. Okay, so tempting, I know, to go, right, that was your old life, here's your new life, here's your bedroom with all your new stuff in it, enjoy. And what that does is eradicate anything they ever had before. any experiences they've had before. And again, they lose control because you've decided what's going to be in that bedroom, what they're going to have. And, you know, you've maybe taken away their bedding that they used to have, any old toys they used to have. You might think it looks like tat, but to them, it's their life. So I would fully suggest, again, to slow things down, that you do include bits from their past life, from their foster carer's life. You don't have to do all of it. You can do a mixture of stuff that you've got and a mixture of stuff that they've come with, and that would work really, really well. What else have I got written down here? What have I got? Yes, okay. So this might seem like a strange one to cover in a way when we're talking about slowing things down. Sometimes adopted children try to speed you up. They try to make you jump to their call because their anxiety and their need to control things and to not have any surprises in life mean that they're going to try and push you for what they want, and they're going to come at it quite quickly. So some children will be like, oh, could you get me this now? Or could we do this now? Can we go out so-and-so today? Can we go and buy this from the shop? Or can I join this club? Can I join that club? Can I see this friend and that friend? And they're like constantly sort of bombarding you with requests. So some children do that because they kind of want to control you, because if they're going to control you, they can keep everything at a distance that they're happy with, and they don't need to think about what's going to happen next. So sometimes, to slow things down, you actually need to slow the child down and control their impulsive behavior, to want to buy everything in sight in the shop, to want to watch, everything on telly, to want to play out all hours. And to start with, you might find it really hard to say no. Hello, can I see somebody? Oh, hello, John. So to start with, you might think that feels a bit cruel because they want to do all these things, and you're quite a new adoptive parent. Even if, after 6 months, you're like, yeah, you can join this, you can join that. Yeah, you can go to so-and-so's house. Yes, we'll have that for tea. It's not wrong to let children have choices, but over a period of time, you'll suddenly realize that they're speeding your life up and they're pushing you into all sorts of directions that you didn't really want to go down, because their anxiety is rubbing off on you. Their need to control is rubbing off on you. So you have to then try to sort of slow that down as much as you can. And we sort of got one child like that and one not. So it can vary according to their personality. So yeah, if they're trying to get you to make quick decisions and you're not ready for it, then you have to sort of say, no, I'm not deciding on that today. We'll decide on that tomorrow. Today's not the day that we were going to be doing that or talking about that. And it sounds quite blunt, doesn't it? Sometimes you have to be quite blunt to be able to maintain the boundaries that are going to ultimately help them feel safe. So if we run through the types of things where they might do that, they might kind of want you to overbuy things, buy too many things, overeating, too much TV, all the stuff that you might expect. So you just need to repeat your ground rules over and over again. Hello, John. Hi, Nari. Thank you for this. I'm a single father with an adopted toddler already, and I'm adopting a second child within the next few weeks. He was a 3-year-old. I'm wondering whether it's better. Wow. Oh, sorry. Whether it's better. I thought you were asking me whether the toddler or the 3-year-old is better. Is it better to co-sleep with my child or encourage her to sleep in her own room? Oh, John. I don't. Okay. I could give you my opinion, all right, but I won't give you my opinion. I'll just give you the two sides of the coin, and maybe from that it could maybe help you to make an opinion, perhaps, maybe. I think co-sleeping. So with the toddler, then, are you co-sleeping with a toddler? Maybe ask that question first, Or did you co-sleep, or are you co-sleeping with a toddler? Let me know that. I'm just reading it now to see if you said that in there. Let me know if you are co-sleeping with the toddler, or whether you intend to co-sleep with the toddler that you already have, or you know, what you're doing with that toddler. And then it might help me to answer the question about the 3-year-old. And we'll go from there. All right. Let me know. Oh, no, my first child was 8 months old and he slept in a cot in my room. But does that say he's in? Does it say he's in the room now? Oh, he's in his own room now. Sorry. Right. Okay. So, okay. Right. So the negative side of co-sleeping is always, at what point does the child return to their own bed and their own room? Okay. Now you might say, well, that's not negative because I don't mind. And I think if as a parent you don't mind how long they share that bed with you, then it doesn't matter in a way, because the biggest danger of co-sleeping is not having your own time and space. Okay, I know I couldn't do it because I'm a really restless sleeper, and I would just be awake all night. Okay, so it's not that I just wouldn't be able to do it, because I like to have, I like to have some space. So if you don't mind how long it takes, because some people say, oh, they decide on their own when they want to go and sleep in their own beds. Well, some of them do, but some of them don't. All right, they still want to be there. So I think it's a case of, and then, of course, you've got to look at the other child and decide, would that mean that your first child would then want to come and sleep with you as well? Because they might do. And again, if the answer to that is, well, I don't mind if they do, Nairi, I don't mind if I've got 2 children in the bed for however long it takes, then go ahead and co-sleep. The advantage of co-sleeping, as I'm sure you know, is attachment, because so many issues and problems happen at night with attachment and fear and everything, that being close to a parent, we've all got to admit, do you remember the times when you were in bed with a parent and you just felt safe because you weren't very well or whatever? It feels good. Let's see. Yes, no doubt he would. No doubt he would. The most important part of all, though, is you protecting your own physical health. And again, I don't know anything about you, John, so, it could be that you're as strong as an ox. You must be if you're thinking of doing a 3-year-old with a 2-year-old. And it might be like, I sleep well, Nairi. It's not going to bother me if they end up both in with me. And you're sort of saying to me, is there any harm in it? I don't think there's any harm in it. But you do have to trade off your lack of independence and, to a certain extent, maybe theirs, because it sounds like the first child you have has actually learned to self-soothe, is actually okay in their own room. And so you're going to take quite a lot of backward steps if you go down that route. And the other thing to say is, what's the sleep situation looking like with a 3-year-old at the moment? So some children do sleep okay. I mean, one of my sons just crashes out because he's so anxious during the day. He sleeps fine. Other children have loads of issues during the night and can't cope at all. We had one foster child that just roamed the house all night long. And I wish I could have just scooped her up and gone, do you know what? Why don't you just get into bed with me for the night? But fostering's different from adoption. You can't do that. So I think it is about how she is at the moment. So is she settled at the foster carer's house and she's doing pretty well sleeping? If the answer to that is, well, it's a bit mixed, you can always go for the halfway house, and that is setting up a little bed for her in the room next to you, but not being in your bed, or you go and sleep in her bed for a bit, and then back off a bit later. Brilliant, thank you. She's at an orphanage at the minute, so will probably be used to sleeping on her own. Okay. Yeah. Well, you can see the two sides. I'm not against co-sleeping at all, but there is something to be said about protecting your own health and not going too far back with your first child, I'd say. So just, yeah. But the halfway houses are setting up a little bed in your room where she can sleep on the floor, or you sleep on the floor in her room for a little bit, or you go into her room and sleep on her bed for a little bit so that you can withdraw in the night and go back to your room. So that's a sort of like semi approach. I hope that helps. I hope that helps. You know, I know parents that have children in pretty late in the bed with them, and if they're happy with that, I mean, you're a single parent. It's not like you're having to try to fit in another adult alongside. Good. That's good, John. I'm glad I've managed to answer a question for you, which isn't an easy one and nobody likes talking about because it's a bit of a touchy subject, isn't it? I don't know what country you're from, but we're very we're very British in Britain. Funnily enough, people don't like talking about certain things, and they don't like to commit to saying anything in case they are politically incorrect, do they? So, where were we? We were talking about any other questions? Just pop them in. Oh wow! Well, I love Ireland, John, because my daughter-in-law comes from Ireland. So, what a lovely place to bring a child up or two children up. What an amazing place. Yes. Visited Sligo quite recently, and my son, who's married an Irish girl, wants to settle over there. So, yes, amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm sure it'll be tough. I'm sure you have your challenges, but as well as I do, greater the kind of risk, greater the reward, I say. So, so we can be a bit British about it or Irish about it. It's whatever way you want to look at it. And aren't they doing well in the rugby? You might not be into it, but they are. Where are we doing here? So, sometimes you have to slow the child down when they're trying to push you in certain directions and stuff like that. And you need to let them see your ground rules over and over and over again and your routines over and over again for them to get the hang of how your household runs and why you do what you do. Some what I call what's going on there? Some activities which, they often don't work for my boys, but they can work. Okay, if you want some calming down activities, so say you've set up this lovely little area, which is what you call your little calm space. That could be in the bedroom, it could be downstairs, it could be anywhere. Then there's activities which are what I call starter finisher activities, things that the child is going to like, is going to be able to do, going to be able to start, going to be able to finish. Okay. Puzzles, they're quiet. You don't want to give them something too complicated. You want to know they're going to be able to do it. They can sit down and do it. Colouring books. I have to admit, this does not work for my boys, but it does work for some children. A set of pens that you're happy to give them, easy colouring, calming, let them sit down. Play-Doh or clay or air-dried stuff for any child, anything where you manipulate and you can make stuff and you've got that sensory sort of experience for them, it's going to calm them down. You're not going to want that in a little tent, maybe. It's going to have to come out on the table, but you'd be surprised the age that children will go up to just manipulating plasticine, clay, air-dried clay, Play-Doh. Okay, if you're not worried about a little bit of mess, then that's a brilliant one, as is paint. I'm sure you understand that it would be. But then you also want to capture the moments with them a little bit. So children love stories and singing. even to quite old. So the question that I first had was around a 7-year-old. Even to quite old, children will enjoy a story time with you, a singing time, because one thing that both of those things do, and the bath routines and stuff like that, where you're using bubbles and pouring water and stuff like that, it allows you have to be quite close to the child. So whether you're reading a story, you can't read it 10 meters away. If you're singing, you're going to be close to them. If you're doing bath time, you've got to supervise them. It means you have to be alongside them. So you're not sort of looking at them going, oh, look, I'm trying to build attachment with you now. But you will be because of your proximity to the child. And when you're doing a long bath time routine, it just slows everything down. Yeah. Have some fun with the bubbles, get loads of bottles in the bath and lots of pouring, and just make it a really lovely experience. The same with the story time. Don't keep bringing out a book that you hate reading, that makes no sense. Get one that you love, that they love, with lots of pictures, and just immerse yourself in that moment. And that just slows everything down when you need it to. That's another idea. So, how are we doing? John, it could just be still you on, maybe? Or not, but how are we doing for time here? I have got a child coming home later who's had a naughty day at school. So I did say to my husband, well, I won't be online when he comes in because we don't want anything to happen. We don't want an explosion downstairs. When he comes back, let me just see how we're doing. Oh, we're all right for a minute. We're all right for a minute. So what else can we talk about? So let me see. Let me know in the chat if you have questions. I'm on that now, really. I don't want to talk about the subject that I've been talking about for any longer because I feel like I've covered it as best I can. So if you have questions about adoption, adopted children, childhood trauma, settling them in, anything, even if you're not an adopter, you're not a foster carer, absolutely fine. Just ask the questions away and I will answer. You will be able to find more live streams on my channel, and you will be able to find just about every subject around adoption that you could possibly want, albeit over a long period of time. But yeah, I'll just hang on just a little bit longer, see if anybody's got any more questions. Let me know. I think the most common age for adoption probably is 2 and 3 year olds, I'm going to say. So, John, you've got a heady mix there, but you have got time to build that attachment with them, which is brilliant, isn't it? I think when they're older, you don't have so much running around and so much physical care, so you have a bit more freedom. But some of the mindsets and things, the way that they may think, and possibly more placement moves even, could mean a lot more sort of mental health work needing to be done. Not necessarily, obviously, but it could. So I think toddler age, sort of older babies, toddlers and 3 year olds is a pretty common age group. So if you're in the chat at the minute, if you're online at the moment, I'm ready for any questions now. I've done chatting about settling in adopted children and slowing things right down with calming strategies and different things that you can do. So if you've missed it, you can look back on the replay. But if you want to ask some questions, anything you want to ask me, now's your time to ask it. So John, let's see what you say here. Yes, I've decided to stay in Vietnam for the next few years. So I'm hoping that will help my children to be very familiar with the culture and language. Oh, okay. Sorry, you're living in Vietnam. Oh, right. Right, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I got confused. I thought you were living in Ireland, but you were adopting from Vietnam, but you're over there. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds okay. Well, their culture is probably different from ours anyway, as far as co-sleeping is concerned, I guess. They might be a little bit more relaxed around it anyway. So it sounds amazing, John. Sounds really exciting. I'm jealous, really. I love that exciting time, when you first meet your child, and even though it's hectic, it's really exciting. And I think young children, uh, we just found with the boys that everything that we gave them that was new or ever experienced, they just absorbed all of it. Now that they're older and they're teenagers, there's an expectation, isn't there, that they will get this and that. But when they were younger, they didn't expect anything, and it was just really, really nice. So yeah, so if you're in there online and you want to ask me some questions, please do. Anything about adoption, anything about fostering, just let me know. I'll just hang on a little bit longer, see what you have to say. Have you ever done long-term fostering? Yes, in a word, yes, I have. So it's a bit of a long story, but I'll cut it short. We had a little girl that we were going to do long-term fostering for, and we had her for about 2.5 years, and we were going to be just doing long-term fostering for her. She was a highly complex child and had, an immense need, shall we say. But it ended up being that when we were fostering the boys, we worked out that she wasn't going to be safe alongside the boys, and that actually she wasn't ready for a family, which I know sounds tragic, and it is, but she wasn't really ready to be in a family home. She wasn't safe to be in a family home. So she had to be moved into a residential. So that's my only experience of it. But she was going to be our long-term foster child. So I was pretty devastated, to be honest, when she went. And I did keep in touch with her for many, many, many years until recently. We had to sign something that said she was going to be our long-term foster child. There was never going to be any moving on. And the other situation we had with the boys was that they were short term, but then they went for adoption and it didn't work out. So when they came back, they were going to be our long term, which they were until we adopted them. So, okay, so it differs in the sense that the benefits would be you would get support from the social worker, continuing support, continuing training, continuing visits. And depending on when you look at it as a positive or negative, you're never the parent. So you never have legal rights over the child. So all the decision making would be made by the organisation that the child is with. Does that make sense? So that means you get more support, you'll get a good allowance, especially if the child is going to be with you long term. If they're a little bit older, you'll get a good amount of payment. But you will get lots of visits, you're checked. Obviously, you've got to meet the guidelines all the time of fostering. When a child's adopted, they're completely legally your child as if you had given birth to them. All the paperwork's there. You become the legal parent, which means you can make all the decisions for the child. It means that you may not get so much support. It often means you don't get financial support, although you can, depending on the level of need of the child. So financially, it's a lot more challenging for a lot of families, but you have the freedom to do what you want as a normal family. So it does feel very different. And having been a foster carer and then an adopter, I can say it feels very different. So I hope that answers your question, but if you have any more questions around that, please do. Most people that start fostering don't go straight into long term, but it's possible to. So if you, for example, if you were you have skills like nursing skills and you're happy to take on a child that had a particular health condition, you may then be put forward for a long-term foster child. But a lot of foster carers start off short-term, which can be anything from a couple of months up to 2-3 years, to be honest. But it would still be known as short-term. Erin, does that answer your question? Ask me more if you want to. I don't know why my husband just burst in on me then, because he knows that I'm not. Oh, he knows I'm on here, unless that was my child. It could have been. I've got 10 more minutes to answer any more questions before the poop hits the fan with the other one coming home, who's been playing silly billies at school. So yeah, let me know. I didn't think that fostering and adoption could feel different because it was the same children that we had. Yeah, good. We had the same children fostering, and then eventually we adopted them. I didn't think that was going to feel any different at all, but it felt completely different because all the visits from the social worker eventually stop once all the paperwork's gone through, and what you decide to do, you decide to do. And foster carers, I don't know what some people's perception are, but they are watched carefully. You get unannounced visits. You get, you don't. I don't think you get away with anything. So you are watched carefully. You do get a lot of visits. It can feel for the child who's trying to rebuild their life quite intimidating to have social worker visits, even though it's supposed to help them. So you get social worker visits, and the child gets their own social worker as well. I think I've answered that question for you, Erin. Okay, if anybody else has got anything, I've got 10 minutes to answer the question coming in, whatever it may be. It's really hard to sit here quietly when you're looking at yourself on the screen. Not that I'm used to being very quiet, but there we go. I think we might be done, everybody. Might we be done? I think we are. So I'm going to say goodbye to you all. Thank you for coming on my live. I hope you'll join me again. I do a mixture of videos and I've been doing more lives, but normally I do a video once a week, and occasionally I'll drop in a live. So I hope to see you either on another live or enjoy my next video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.